Hello everyone, be prepared to be told what you already know about the artist formerly known as Prince. I'm going to look at this man's hands and reveal what his hands can tell us. Now, if you've been watching any of my recent videos, you know that I have been reading the palms of aristocracy recently. Well, today I'm looking at someone who is not actually aristocracy, but still a prince nonetheless. And I can instantly see straight away he's got here an angle of proficiency or time, very acute angle here, and this is always seen with people who have excellent timing, excellent routine, who are almost bound by order. Things have to be just so, in their right place. Things have their place and they belong there. Now if you look at another image, you can really appreciate just how acute that angle is. I'm just going to zoom in for you. Look at that, it's almost right angle. Now, people who thrive off routine have this always, people often in the military, but particularly people who have exceptional rhythm, and that is, obviously dancers, but people who play the drums as well. All drummers have this. Now, one of the first things I noticed about the shape of the palms and the fingers, undoubtedly Prince, as you might imagine, is a fire hand. He has a long palm and short fingers. He is highly inspirational, just his presence alone, highly charismatic. He is motivational in his ability to inspire us with his talents. His Venus mount is incredibly strong. And this shows not only a strong sort of vitality and constitution, but a strong charisma, a strong sense of character, strong personality, but also, the size of this, as well as just how well developed the mount is, shows also a desire for all of the things pleasurable in life as well. Sex, chocolate, alcohol, drugs, sport, music, obviously, all of the pleasures in life, all of the comforts in life. And I say this because, in particular with this person, because this is the one mount that really stands out. It's his dominant mount. The second to it is almost certainly lunar. I have noticed a couple of differences between the left and the right hand. I'm going to get around to explaining what I think this means. But first of all, the length of the Mercury finger is exceptional. And when measuring this against the bottom two phalanges of Apollo, we can truly understand the length of Mercury. And what this means is this is someone who is highly able to express and communicate themselves. Expression comes in many forms, not just verbal. The way in which a person dresses, the way they carry themselves, they gesticulate, even the pausing in between words, body language, of course, dance, lyrics in particular, what we say, not just how we say it, but of course music. And this is what this man is remembered for, and this is really this finger shows this ability to express. But not only that, his ability to learn. Mercury is a messenger god. Hermes is the equivalent, the trickster god, the deceiver. He is immensely intelligent, and so when we have a well-developed Mercury finger, it shows these aspects. Now, the finger itself is not just the single key signifier of intelligence, but other signs in the palm have shown this as well, and I'll get around to explaining that. In particular, a long and well-developed first phalanx of Mercury shows a strong ability to verbally express and communicate. Now, although Mercury is low set, I've offset the length of Mercury here, shown by this purple rectangle, in honor of the man himself, and you can see here that it reaches past the first phalanx and then some. And this is how we really determine what a long Mercury finger is. The bottom phalange is also quite long as well, and there's also a gap between the head and the lifeline. These are both signifiers of a strong desire to be independent. It shows a possibility to challenge authority, but also a non-conformist way of thinking. The head's energy, the mind's energies, are not connected with the life's energy. This shows a radical thinker. It also shows an impatient person and a possible risk taker, someone who actually enjoys taking risks, probably gets some pleasure from that. Also note the rounded tips to the fingers. These are, very rounded, and this shows likely someone who responds in the moment, who reacts quite quickly. In some sense, it's a signifier of sensitivity, but mostly it shows someone who's very able to respond quickly. The Apollo finger is very long, and it really shows the true extent of the man's talents, his abilities, his creative worth. It also shows a person's desire for reputation and how much this matters to a person. It shows almost to signify a level of vanity. Now again, with the fingers, these are signifiers, and you have to look for other areas in the palms to corroborate these clues. And that's what palmistry is essentially. It's connecting the dots between circumstantial pieces of evidence until you have one solid conclusion. This kind of length of Apollo in conjunction with this sort of length of Jupiter, which is very short, and combine that with this gap between the head and the lifeline, these three signs are the signs of a bad gambler. Frank Sinatra also had these signs as well. That's not to say that this man was a gambler. However, had he been a gambler, it wouldn't have paid off. And maybe he was. I don't actually know all that much about this man. All I'm really saying is what the hands are saying. Now, a short Jupiter finger, how we determine what short is well, truly would be to do the same thing we've done with Mercury here, to offset the length of Jupiter against Saturn. And I think it's worth doing that in this case because Jupiter is a little bit low set. Now, this is what Beryl Hutchinson would have referred to as the Norman arch, which is actually a really good thing because it shows that they're all of the key traits of what makes that person up, their abilities, their skill set are in balance. They balance each other out, they complement each other. So I've again measured using a purple rectangle here, and if we just offset that, if it reaches, and it just about does, the halfway mark of the first phalanx of Saturn, and yes, it does, that's good, but the fact that it's low set in the first place, so this means two things. Really, this is an inferiority complex, but it's not to say that this person doesn't have self-belief. It's more about how they feel every time they achieve something that sort of moves the goalpost, so they then need to try harder to achieve the next goal. And there's this they're caught in a constant spiral of not feeling like they are ever happy with their achievements. There's a constant feeling of inadequacy with this person, and that he is in some way not doing good enough, even despite being one of the greatest music legends to have lived. I think the man could play something like 15 musical instruments classically. I don't really know, as I say, I don't really know much about this man, but I've heard that and I don't doubt it. Now, being that this is the left hand, this is more a feeling, this is insecurity. Now, looking at the right hand, notice the difference here. The right hand Jupiter finger, it's actually shorter, but that's probably likely due to the bending inwards of Jupiter here. Now, the right hand is what's practical, physical, and this shows actually it's a signifier of someone who has been overly criticized by parental figures when they were young, and it's crushed their ego. It's somehow twisted and warped their ego. And people with this sign often feel so hesitant to trust their own decision making. Their ego has been damaged so much they no longer trust themselves in some way, so they rely on others for advice. And the significant grooves seen here in between the things, almost sort of teardropped shaped, these carved out grooves, these recesses show this is a lacking of character build-up infrastructure here. There's a lacking of the foundations of how this person should have been building themselves from the ground up, and it shows here. This one is a lacking of a father, parental figure, and this one is the mother. So there were at different times, for different reasons and in different ways, I'm sure, there was a feeling that he longed for both parents in different ways, and this was likely a result of a parental figure as well. It might not have been the two that his biological parents. It could have been a teacher. It's some sort of guidance figure here that's been overcritical. That's usually what the cause of this is. And being the right hand, this is the physical, the practical effects that it has had, the long-lasting effects that it's had on this person. Now the two lines that reach down here just outside of the family ring itself are interesting. These are sometimes referred to as influence lines. However, I'm not sure that's the correct term really. Horizontal lines that travel from the Venus mountain itself and cross over the lifeline are generally influences from the family sphere. Now, being the left hand, this is internal. These are certainly in some way impactful in terms of, these are influences in this person's life, but they don't directly affect as in, specific events. These are overall influences, strong, influential people close to home that continually have an influence on them as a person and inspire them. And it's likely that one is a teacher and another is a parent, or something similar, sort of a powerful sort of role model, inspirational role model. This person lives up to and looks up to two of these. Now, one thing that is particularly interesting here is this is the Via Mater, or formerly known as the mother line. Notice the direction of this line. You can almost see this more clearly when you zoom outwards a little bit. But if you look at the direction of this mother line and where it's heading, it points towards just this intersection of lines here. Here's another. You could refer to this as an influence close to home. There's certainly some anger around this. But where this points towards this intersection here, where this drive, this feeling of regret, remorse, it strikes at the Sunline, the Apollo line, the success line, and really for this person it's their happiness. It's what makes them happy in their life. And this deep mother line that points towards this intersection, you can see here where this would cross the fate line is at the age of about 40, mid-40s, and these are signs of this person. I mean, I can say this now with ease, this person losing their mother at the age of mid-40s, and just how much this affects them inwardly, internally, as this is the left hand. And one of the first things I noticed about this person's palm, which I've neglected to mention, was just how high up on the palm the headline begins. And when we see this, it really does affect this timing of the fate line, because generally this intersection here where the headline meets, where the fate line meets the headline, that's the age of 35, roughly speaking. But when we see a higher headline like this, the lifeline too is a little bit on the high side. It kind of distorts that timing. So it's very rough when I do these readings. It's kind of rough anyway when I do these readings, because I'm not able to look at the beginning of the lifeline in person. You have to really turn the hand on its ulnar side. You have to look in between the thumb and the index fingers to really look at where that line begins, and then you can kind of track that, time it properly from there. So what I'm trying to say is that the fate line, where it crosses this intersection, is actually a little bit later in life for this person because of where the other lines begin. The distance between the head and the heart line is, even though the headline begins quite high up on Jupiter, which shows a tremendous drive and ambition to succeed and excel in life, we still see quite a gap here, quite a space here, and this shows an open mind, and this again ties in with this radical thinking. At the age of 18, we see what looks like possibly some academic achievements here, and just how this affected this person on a practical level. The large ring worn on the right hand here of Mercury could show some insecurity around relationship, sexual expression at this time. Often it's an unconscious signifier of problems in a relationship. Now look at the curve of this headline. I mean, it's just remarkable. The length and the arc of it, this gentle but steady curve like this, the combination of the length and the curve, the arc, where it lands in a well-developed lunar, along with this long Mercury finger we've already established. These are the signs of a clearly highly intelligent and musically creative, or just an all-round creative person anyway, where we would see musically gifted insights in the palms, more in terms of sort of dermatoglyphics, the skin ridge patterns themselves. We'd have to really have a closer look here. And also, when we have a palm print that's an actual palm print with ink, you can see the palm in a completely different way. I say it's a little bit like comparing night vision to heat vision. You can see the fingers themselves, where the fingers meet the palms. In an ink palm print, they'll leave a white sort of negative, and it's almost as though the fingers kind of appear somewhere else on the page. And it's because of the way the muscles develop in the hand when a person continuously plays, in particular wooden musical instruments. And so it's one of the telltale signs for the palmist that someone is a musician. Now, in almost all palmistry books, you'll see examples of a sunline like this, and it kind of gives you a bit of an inferiority complex yourself whenever you see this sort of thing, because in fact no one really has a sunline like this except for prints. And the reason is, I mean, you do see this very, very occasionally, but only with people who are tremendously gifted, only with people who are pretty much child prodigies. You know, Beethoven, Mozart likely would have had these kinds of signs on their hands, these kinds of sunlines, these kinds of people who have made a name for themselves at a very early age and pursued one type of interest and carried it out, completed it to a level of just sheer brilliance, genius. And if you look closely at the fate line or the career line, you will see it just sort of curve off gently towards Apollo, this place of expression, creativity, talents, the arts. But you do see it it's a lot more faint after the age of, 38 or so, maybe 37. It's a lot more faint after that age. When the fate line hits the headline, it kind of becomes a lot more faint, and I think that's because I think there were issues around, and I literally Googled when I saw this, what happened to Prince at age 35. I had to do a bit of digging. I didn't really get the answer straight away, but I finally figured out he had to change his name. There was some dispute with a record label, and this is when he became known as the artist formerly known as Prince. So a legal embroilment here, a lawsuit affected his career. But if you look closely, you can quite literally see that success line and the career line are both linked. They both help support each other. They're both in direct connection with each other. You can't have one without the other. This person, their talent, what makes them as a person, has a direct influence on this person's career. Now, the one mystery I'm going to kind of leave you with here is that on the lifeline, if you look closely, you can just about see what looks like an island. Now, I would actually put this down around about the age of mid-60s or so. There looked to have been some sort of possible health issue on the horizon. That still would have been, somewhere near 10 years after the age of this person's death, unfortunately. And what I mentioned earlier about being a risk taker, about being a gambler, and these are the signs of a bad gambler. I'm not necessarily saying that he was a gambler, but had he gambled, had he thrown the dice, it wouldn't have gone well in his favour. And this is because of this impatience, because of this what's known as in Tibetan palmistry the mark of the tiger, this jumping in with both feet before giving proper thought to the consequences. And that's what this is the signifier of, this lacking of a connection with the headline and the lifeline's energies. It's also likely how he created such unique and profoundly compelling music over the decades. But this, in combination with a short Jupiter finger, an inferiority complex, I mean, it's only just on the short side, but it is, and Apollo is certainly on the long side. When you offset the distance, the length against Saturn, it's a very long Apollo. And so these three things combined is the sign of a bad gambler. And you could argue that Prince gambled. Prince had allegedly obtained medication to manage withdrawal symptoms of opioids, and had apparently unknowingly had taken what he thought was Vicodin laced with fentanyl, and it was the fentanyl that had killed him. So you could argue that this was some sort of gamble. I'm not sure if that's a stretch though. Let me know what you think, and thank you for watching. I hope you've gained something from this reading. I try to provide something a bit different with every reading I do, but in all honesty, I really just say what the hands are telling me, and sometimes I'll try and provide a bit of context by doing a little bit of research, but genuinely, I know very little about every person, every celebrity that I read. The other things I haven't really mentioned here are the longish tips on each of his fingers really show someone who is very spiritual, potentially religious as well. And that's often seen actually on people who are truly religious. The shortened Jupiter finger, which that reduced ego, shows how they actually feel very small in the universe. There's a bigger picture. Gandhi had this as well. Religious leaders, generally religious leaders, have show very different signs there, because they're actually in it for the wrong reasons. However, someone like Gandhi was, and and this kind of heart line as well, reaching right up onto Jupiter in combination with this, it just shows this kind of philanthropy as well, this sort of thinking of others, as does these inward leaning middle fingers as well. Shows very conscious about the wider picture, about others. I think all in all, Prince was a decent person, a good person, who was highly considerate, and was in some ways caught up in himself and his own gigantic, I feel, inferiority complex, feelings of innate inadequacy, despite having having achieved massive successes in his life. So thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are, and let me know who you'd like me to read for next Sunday's case study. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.